I love this one. My mother taught me about genetics. You are just like your father. I think that's pretty cute. I wrote an article a few years ago. I reposted it a day or so ago it was called My Mother's Purse. And it sort of embodied who she was. And she always carried this big purse that could hold everything that you might need in an emergency. My daughter Sherry does the same thing, the exact same thing. I don't know if she remembers my mother doing that or if that's why she does it. But she carries everything in her purse that you could possibly need to patch up a wound, something to take for your heartburn. Maybe you need a little snack. Maybe you need some scissors, or it just goes on and on. I don't know how such little people carry such big purses. I remember, too, one of the things that I admired so much about my mother was when she was in her 80s, and she had raised her own 6 children, several grandchildren, and she was on to helping raise some great-grandchildren. And as it turned out, there was a great-grandson who had been a bit difficult, and he was having trouble getting along with those in his immediate environment, not necessarily his parents, maybe a grandparent, step-grandparent, whatever, you get the picture. And he was a child that just wanted to be nurtured and loved. And he loved being at my mother and father's house more than any place. Now, these were a couple that were in their 80s. And they were struggling to find an answer for him, and he'd been going to a psychologist, and a social worker came to meet at my parents' house, and the other parents involved, grandparents, came too. It was a family event. And he was saying how much he wanted to live with his grandparents. And the social worker looked to my mother, and she said, "Well, Clara, you're in your 80s. Really and seriously, how long do you think you can take care of this young boy, this child, take care of his needs and all of his needs for going to school, feeding, clothing, whatever?" And my mother just looked at her and said, without any strain, without anything else, all the confidence in the world, and she said, "Just as long as it takes. I can do it." And she did. She got him graduated from high school. And would you know, the next year she had a back fracture that changed her life. But she did. She did it. Just as long as it takes was one of the things that I admired so much about her. And I wanted to talk today a bit about mothering and nurturing. Mother's Day is, of course, an American holiday and a holiday around the world. And I think Janet shared with us when the first holiday was in the United States, the first Mother's Day. And what year was that, Janet? 1914. Okay. I knew it was something like that. In England, they had a day they called Mothering Day. And it was a time when families came back together. You see, there used to be a practice in the lower classes where the young children would be indentured out to more fortunate families to work. And they were sent away at a very young age from their own parents to go out and work in other places. And Mothering Day was a day that they were able to come back to their own mother and be mothered and nurtured instead of just working. I don't know about you, but it's hard for me to think of the children that I've known when they were 10 years old being sent out to work. I know that it's been a practice in a lot of cultures to send the children out to boarding school at a very young age. Wherever these children go, I hope that they can be nurtured. I hope they can be held. I hope they can be held tightly, whether it's a woman, a man, a child, or whomever that takes this child in. I just hope and pray that they can be nurtured and held tightly and to know that they're loved. And that's why I wanted to talk about nurturing today instead of just Mother's Day, which is enough, but nurturing. And what does it mean? Let that train pass. And we bless them on their way onward as well. I was with some friends the other day and talking about plants. I had been given a plant for Mother's Day, and it was just so beautiful, and we were talking about the fact that I would probably make it grow, and I probably will because I seem to know how to nurture them. But I was talking about the fact that I had pulled up a plant while I'm walking. Flowers grow everywhere here. Along the roadside, you can see the coreopsis, and they're just beautiful, usually oranges and yellows. And I had pulled it up and planted it, and it was just growing so beautifully. And a friend says, well, you know, I do that, but they don't ever seem to grow. What did you do? I said, well, here's what they want. They want to be placed in the soil gently and lovingly, and then put enough soil around them and press down gently on the soil, because their roots are tender and they want to be loved and held. And they want that. That's really, really important, just when they've been uprooted, is to make those roots feel snug. Not the way my husband would do it now with his big hands pressing down real hard. Don't do that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying with love and gentleness and pressing down firmly, just so that those roots are firm, so that they can get the nourishment from the soil, and when they're watered, that the roots will take that on. And it made me think of how now with babies, when they're born in the hospital, they will swaddle them really tightly. And then they encourage the mother and the father, when they're holding them, to hold them very tightly, because they want to be snug. They want to be gently held and to know that they're loved. Some of the attributes of a nurturer, I would say, would be loving, gentle, sensitive, and sincere, calm and patient, a loving listener, gives full attention, speaks from the heart, holds sacred space for someone. You know what that means when you tell someone, I'm going to hold you in sacred space. That means when I pray for you, I'm going to create this space around me, this sacred, and it's only going to be me and God. And in that sacred space, I'm going to invite your consciousness in, and I'm going to pray for you there. That's where I'm praying for you. And then you hold the knowing that the person that's being nurtured is bigger than their challenge. Even if they don't know that, right? They may not know that, but you're going to know that for them. That's what you're going to know for them. Without judging, hold the truth for them when they're unable to do it for themselves. And then wisdom, you know when to give them space, when to allow them to be on their own and to heal. And I pray this morning to allow the divine